A new report shows just how far China is willing to go to kill Americans. But is the Biden administration trying to cover it up? Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. When Biden became president, he told America the adults are back in charge. He made diplomacy the cornerstone of his foreign policy, especially when it came to China. Of course, that meant at times the U.S. needed to kowtow a bit, sometimes literally. And certainly Secretary of State Antony Blinken is not a fan of when Biden calls Xi Jinping a dictator.
Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense.
It's like you can see his soul leaving his body. In fact, the Biden administration tried to hide that Chinese spy balloon from the American public so as not to interfere with Blinken's planned trip to China. But maybe it's okay to make some concessions to an authoritarian regime when there are more important things on the line. Things like the fentanyl crisis. On average, over 200 Americans die from fentanyl overdoses each day. And most of that fentanyl, or at least the chemicals used to make it, come from China. This has been going on for a long time. Obama talked about it with Xi Jinping when he was president. So did Trump. And so has Biden. Last year, Biden even removed sanctions on China in exchange for help reining in fentanyl. But hey, it's not like China isn't trying. In 2022, the Biden administration came out with this report on synthetic opioid trafficking. It was originally committed in late 2019 under then President Trump, but it ended up being Biden officials who staffed and wrote the report. They found that China has taken steps to curb the production of fentanyl. The problem is that China's chemical and pharmaceutical sectors are too big for the Chinese government to regulate. It's rogue, illicit producers working with drug cartels that are the real problem, which is why we need to work with China to combat fentanyl. Just one little problem. Turns out that report was a lie, or at best, an optimistically naive version of the truth. Because a new report from Congress, not the Biden administration, reveals China's fentanyl production is being supported from the very top. So did the Biden administration try to hide this, just like they tried to hide the spy balloon? I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. According to this shocking new report from the bipartisan Select Committee on the CCP, the Chinese government is not just turning a blind eye to fentanyl production, they're actively supporting it. The investigation found that as far back as 2018, the CCP had provided direct government subsidies to companies that export fentanyl and other synthetic narcotics in the form of value-added tax rebates. Let me say that again. Chinese companies are getting tax rebates from the CCP for exporting illegal drugs. That doesn't sound like the CCP is trying really hard to curb all that fentanyl production. The CCP also gave out grants and awards to companies known for exporting fentanyl. Government officials inspected the factories. Some fentanyl exporters even had party members on staff. And when the U.S. tried to work together with China and get U.S. law enforcement to inspect these facilities, PRC officials had notified the targets of an investigation. But hey, it's easy to notify companies they're going to be investigated when the CCP owns the companies. Yes, some of these companies are state-owned. As an example of how crazy this whole thing is, one of these companies that exported dangerous illegal synthetic opioids was Yafeng Biological Technology. Yafeng boasted about having 10 years of experience and guaranteed they could package their illegal narcotics to get past other countries' customs. And Yafeng was owned by a Chinese prison. A prison that is known for raping, torturing, and killing Falun Gong practitioners. So, just to be clear, a Chinese state-owned prison that was torturing and killing Chinese prisoners of conscience was also making money by exporting illegal drugs that were killing Americans. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, this is on top of all the other evidence we already had that the Chinese triads and money launderers who worked with drug cartels to move fentanyl also had direct links to the CCP. In fact, there's a great book on that subject, Willful Blindness by Sam Cooper. You should check it out. But, so the question is, why did the Biden administration give a completely different take in their report from 2022? Were they so committed to the idea of engagement, of not angering China, that they felt they had to cover up the truth? The truth that 200 Americans die a day for years upon years thanks to the Chinese Communist Party's drug warfare. Even if they didn't actively cover up what the CCP was doing, the Biden administration at best naively believed the CCP when they claimed to be trying to stop the fentanyl trade, when the CCP was instead literally making money off of it. I know it's hard to imagine the person smiling at you while you shake their hand and bow at them could actually be plotting to kill your people. But China, under the Chinese Communist Party, is not a normal country. And the Biden administration's biggest mistake is treating them like they are normal, including giving the CCP the benefit of the doubt about how they're really trying to stop the export of fentanyl. It's just too hard for an authoritarian state that has complete control over its own people. Look, the CCP is a Marxist-Leninist state, and their goal, the goal they actually talk about, is the destruction of America. The CCP hates that I constantly remind people of that fact. That's why Chinese state-run media has called China Uncensored disgraceful anti-China garbage. But the CCP hasn't seen anything yet. I'll tease a little bit that I've got a big project coming up that I think you all are going to really like. That's why I need your support on the crowdfunding website patreon.com/China Uncensored. All it takes is $1 or more an episode. I make about 16 episodes a month, but if that's too much for you, you can set a monthly limit so you can ensure I can keep uncensoring China for even $1 a month. And as a thank you to everyone who gives on Patreon, I'll answer one of your questions at the end of these episodes. Today's question comes from Pat Quinn. Is it plausible that China might get kicked out of the WTO? Is that even possible? How could that happen? For example, it seems as though China is trying to dump BYD EVs into the American market. There are other examples. That's a great question, Pat. So yes, there's the EV dumping and millions of other examples of China violating WTO rules and regulations. The problem is there's no mechanism for kicking out a country once they're in. It's never happened. Now, there have been talks of trying to reform the dispute system, but those haven't been going very well. There's also some rumblings of the U.S. pulling out or creating a new alternative, but this all goes back to the problem this episode was about, the engagement school, the idea that we have to work with China. It never works out. Because again, China isn't like a normal country, and it can't be treated as such for as long as the Chinese Communist Party rules. Thanks for your question and your support, Pat. Thank you for watching. Join Pat on Patreon by clicking that orange button. And if you didn't know, I also talk about news and politics through the lens of gaming on my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming. Click on this video about how Marxist ideology is infecting the gaming industry through DEI consultancy groups like Sweet Baby Inc. Let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.